All right, Josh, I'm hanging up on you, bud. Okay, I think we're good. I think we're golden. We finally figured it out. This is what happens when you're the only person in the studio. You kind of gotta like roll with the punches and figure everything out. Plus, Josh really needs to label the mics because he told me to turn on number 1, and it turns out I'm on number 2. Anyway, thank you for sticking with us through those technical difficulties and rolling with the punches. I hope you guys are all safe and sound at home, having a great time. We're going to be painting an Incredible Hulk today for those who just joined on. Why are we painting an Incredible Hulk? I'll repeat myself one more time, hopefully with no echo. Don't blame Josh. I'm going to blame Josh. Josh is the one in charge. It's clearly his fault. So for Adepticon, we were going to unveil a brand new Ultimate Encounter featuring the Incredible Hulk as the cosmic threat. Unfortunately, because of safety and health concerns, Adepticon is not happening this year, but we still wanted to make sure that you guys got a chance to get the Incredible Hulk Ultimate Encounter into your hands and to be able to play it. I'm told that all of that good material will be going up tomorrow on our website. So Friday, tomorrow, I'm not sure what time. Watch the social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff for the official announcement for when it goes up and becomes live. But it's a super awesome Ultimate Encounter. To kind of give you guys an overview of what's going on, the Incredible Hulk is our problem solver. He's actually the hero for the Ultimate Encounter. The Crisis Team players have been irradiated by gamma energy. They've become hulked out themselves, and they're on a rampage. And the only person who can stop them and de-gamma power them is our big hero, the big green machine, the Incredible Hulk. The game plays a lot like a pro wrestling match where players are just going to beat the crap out of each other. The Hulk is going to come in being the Super Hulk that you all know and love. He's going to toss people around, and the Hulk's goal is to throw the characters, to subdue the characters, pick them up, throw them into these gamma depowering stations, and suck the gamma radiation that they've been exposed to out of them to basically return them back to normal. It's a raucous good time. It plays very quickly, actually. One of our goals with this Ultimate Encounter was to create an experience that basically was like 40 minutes or less. And so really you just want to bring in the whole attitude and kind of like wham bam power that you get from professional wrestling. You're really going to be able to yell a lot of Hulk smash. There's some really fun mechanics in there that are going to let you do a lot of sound effects. It's just a really good time. It's a fun and lighthearted kind of Ultimate Encounter with a lot of crazy action, and everything on the table is going to get thrown. So super exciting time. We were going to play it today, but unfortunately shelter in place means that I need to be in the studio by myself to make sure that everyone is safe and secure because we want to do our part to stop the spread of the current pandemic going on in the globe. So again, I hope you guys are all safe and sound at home. We are going to be looking at doing more streams throughout the course of the next few weeks now that we've kind of ironed out our problems and we're continuing to move on. But we will be doing more streams remotely so we can hang out with you guys, we can chat online, and we can paint and all that good stuff. So with that said, again, look forward to the Ultimate Encounter. Tomorrow it will be launching. It's free to download. It's a really good time. I was really excited to get to watch people play at Adepticon and just kind of be wowed by this new experience. But you guys all get to do it at home. Please post your pictures, all that good stuff on social media. We've been watching a lot, interacting with people there. And we're just looking forward to doing more hobbying, more content with you guys. So we all have something to connect with and do as we weather the current global storm. With that said, I'm going to kick in on this Incredible Hulk. And I believe that we're going to go ahead and I'm just going to paint this guy in very classic colors. You'll notice that I did not today do the Zenith Prime. One of the things I wanted to do today was kind of to show a different method of painting. So I'm going to be doing a very classic layered approach where I'm just going to build layers on top of each other. I might do a little bit of blending, but for the most part, I just kind of wanted to show a new technique that we haven't really used a lot on the show. We've used it a couple of times, but instead of doing the wash technique over Zenith, which is really fast and gets you great results, I thought I'd go a little more traditional, do a layered approach where I'm just going to build my layers up one at a time, and here we go. So the first thing I'm going to start with is I'm going to start with Merm Green, which is a nice dark green from the Fantasy line of scale 75. And I'm just going to use this as my all-over base color. So this is going to be a really exciting part where you just watch me cover this guy, really like kind of slop. And I know that I'm going to need a couple of coats on this. So I'm not really going to worry about how clean and smooth my base coat is going on. Because I'm doing it over white, it's going to take probably 2 coats to kind of get through. And then because I'm going to be building color, I'll have a little bit of time for that. So here we go. So we're just launching in. So as far as like personal hobby projects, I don't know what you all have been working on, but I have been cranking through the Guardians of the Galaxy recently. And I finished my Rocket and Groot not too long ago, which I was pretty excited with. And they're super fun to play. I've actually been playing a little bit of Ultron Ultimate Encounters with my family at home and walking them through that. And so that's been a lot of fun. Thankfully, my wife is a proponent of the game. She enjoys it. So we get to walk through that. And the boys definitely need stuff to do right now, like everyone else. But yeah, it's been good. It's been watching and kind of figuring stuff out. So now normally what I would do for something like this with this big area, because I have access to an airbrush, I would normally just airbrush on this base coat, which would make it go a lot quicker. But obviously, a lot of people don't have access to an airbrush. And so the old traditional method of just grab a brush and mash the paint on there is a great way to go too. And you'll notice I'm not really being that careful about like getting it on his hair or maybe in his teeth. Fact of the matter is like just mash paint on there. Don't grab a small brush and worry about it. Grab a nice big chunky brush. This is the biggest one I had access to in the office. Normally I'd probably use something even bigger than this just to make this process go a little faster. But you know, it's what we got, so here we go. Ba-boom. But yeah, it was really fun kind of working secretly, and I don't know if people, for those of you guys watching the stream, we've kind of talked about how something incredible was coming to Adepticon. Obviously that was kind of like my little secret way of pointing towards the fact that we were going to have an incredible Hulk raid for those who might have caught it. Now, of course, you can go back and be like, oh, that's why you kept using that one word over and over again. But yeah, Hulk, like I said at the start of the stream, and probably a lot of echo, I've always really loved the Hulk, like the storylines behind him, the character. He's fun. He's a fun and interesting, like, storylines, and you can do so many things with the Hulk, and I think that's one of the cool things, you know. The Hulk in regular Crisis Protocol, he's a big beater. He does a lot of damage, like kind of gets angrier and angrier, and then of course improves. But he's kind of a damaged sponge, you know. He's designed so that you want him to take a lot of damage and get injured, so that he can build up that you won't like me when I'm angry, like all the dice ever, and then he just hits for all the damage. So one of the things, of course, is that depending on the run that you read and all of that stuff, power levels of characters, like what they do, kind of what they focus on, very much changes. And so one of the cool things about these different game modes, especially with like Ultimate Encounters, is it allows us to take a character like the Hulk and kind of give him that power level as to if he was in his own comic. You know, for example, like Immortal Hulk, recently he went up against the Avengers because they were trying to stop him because they had kind of been bamboozled by the government, that the Hulk was like causing all these problems when he really wasn't. You know, classic Hulk style. And effectively, like, the Avengers just get their butts handed to them by the Immortal Hulk, which is kind of a classic thing that's happened over and over in the comics. Is a lot of the times when you're reading like the Hulk himself, you know, like his solo series or whatever, he's just this unstoppable force. And of course, he is the strongest one there is, provided that, you know, his power is limitless as long as he gets angry. So being able to kind of dive in a mode like Ultimate Encounters, where you can really amp up the power level of the character and you can kind of like experience that full-on visceral, like, this is what it feels like when the Hulk doesn't hold back, was super fun. And then, of course, you know, a lot of us in the office, we grew up with pro wrestling and kind of just that visceral, like, sports entertainment excitement and stuff. And so it was really fun to kind of like take the idea of, well, you know, there's a ring and people are getting thrown out of it and that's how you get eliminated and stuff, and just kind of make a Marvel Crisis Protocol interpretation of pro wrestling using the Hulk, which felt so appropriate. It was just a real big blast to kind of put together, and we had so much fun in the office. And whereas Josh, I think, was kind of our Ultron master when we were working on All Will Be Metal, I wound up being the Hulk master for like all of our playtesting. And I would just scream Hulk smash, and I would cackle wildly as I just destroyed everybody. It was great. That was my jam, no question. I was all in on that. So yeah, just a really good time. And like I said, it's a nice, fast game experience without really cutting back on any of the super action. So we kind of designed it for the con experience where, you know, you want to come in, but there's so much to do, and maybe you need something to do in between like events or whatever. You don't want a game that's going to last 2 hours. Like, you don't want a full game length experience or anything. You want something that's going to be really satisfying, but also kind of quick that you can do in your off time. And so that was another thing that we kind of like worked on with this, was thinking about, okay, well, how do we make something that feels like a full game experience that's really enjoyable, but also that happens really quick. So all right, well, what do we got? The chances of getting Vibranium Heist. So, for those of you guys who have kind of been watching Asmodee announcements and stuff, one of the determinations that we made along with Asmodee was really in kind of accordance with worrying about people's safety and wanting to make sure that we're doing our part to make sure that people stay healthy and that we kind of flatten the curve and all that stuff. We made the decision to postpone all of our organized play until further notice. And so what that means, unfortunately, is that Vibranium Heist, which was going to debut at Adepticon and then release into stores as one of our first story day events for the kit, is of course delayed as well. And so because of its unique nature and the fact that it is a standalone kind of game experience that requires its own tokens and a lot of other game components, we're going to be waiting to release that one until a little bit later, which I know is a bummer because we all want things now. But it'll be the same awesome experience and game mode and all of that stuff. And it's going to be a great way, I think, to celebrate kind of being able to come out of quarantine and get to physically hang out with everybody again. So that's kind of where we are with Vibranium Heist. So it won't be released in any special way early, because we really think and want that one to be kind of a big community celebration, a great way for players to get together in community and stores and stuff. And yeah, so that's where Vibranium Heist is. So unfortunately, a little bit longer to wait, but hopefully everyone will agree that it'll be worth the wait, and it'll be a great way to kind of celebrate coming back together into community to start playing Marvel Crisis Protocol in the stores and with our friends and all of that stuff again. So, all right. So we're just going to do one more quick coat on this guy. And again, I'm not really being all that careful or that clean. I'm just trying to get a pretty good even coat so I can build up my layers. And this is kind of like a really classic, great way to just start painting, is to not be afraid about mashing paint on the miniature. You know, just work to get that good even coat. Keep your paint a little thin and know that it might take 2 or 3 coats to get that nice solid color. And then once you have it, you can start building your layers. There's nothing fancy going on here. This is just a very classic, again, kind of a very classic kind of approach to miniatures painting. It's the way that I started painting miniatures for sure. There's a lot of techniques, and this is another one, like layering is one that you can use with all the different techniques. So you can use it with washing, you can use it with dry brushing, but it's very straightforward, and it's just kind of like you're just going to build your colors up over and over, and you're going to get a nice result, and it's going to be fairly like straightforward to do, and it's a good way to do it. So I'm just starting really with my dark colors. You want to kind of start either with your mid-tone, and then you can use a wash to really darken it up with layering. Or you can just start, like what I always do is I just start with my darkest color and then I go from there. But the idea being that since you're not really going to blend, and if you're not going to use a wash, which you can, you're not going to go back into those crevices necessarily with the really dark colors. You're just going to build layer on top of layer. And so you want to make sure that you're laying down that shade color, that darkest recess color, as early as possible before you really start doing your highlights. Whoop. We're of course going to go classic purple pants on this Hulk as well, because we're just all in on, like, you know, traditional Hulk. Getting him ready for big ultimate encounter time. What else we got going on down here? Oh, preview miniatures. That's a good Josh question. I think he had one that he was supposed to tease out, but I don't know when that was supposed to be. So, I haven't done under the foot. Oh, I'm sorry. Here. Is that better? I probably would have never done under the foot because you'd never see it. Because you only ever see the miniature from like this angle. But just for your OCD, I will totally paint under the foot because I don't want anybody to feel stressed. This is supposed to be a fun, kind of relaxing time. As we wait for our Incredible Hulk Ultimate Encounter to be released. And yeah, so boop-a-doop-a-doo. Let's go through, get that going. I'm pretty happy with this. We got a pretty good layer going on here. So we might just let that paint dry since I thinned it out a little bit to make sure that it would go well. Then we have our big dark green toad. So I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna do the pants really quick. Does AMG have anything in the Adepticon swag bag? We did, or we do, I guess, is the right way to say it. There, we did contribute to the sweet swag bag. I don't know entirely what the plan is for those, but they were there. So, But yeah, for the time being, unfortunately, I can't paint with Dallas physically right now. So, like I said, we're going to be looking at trying to do more streams for the short term. We figure out the bugs on our single-person remote controlled streams with Josh. Josh, despite all the guff I give him, has done an amazing job of not only setting up a new studio, which, you know, great timing for that. So we got all the bugs of the new studio, and yet here we go, and I come back in and I'm like, hey Josh, I now need you to figure out, you know, how to do it so that we only have one person in the studio at one time, which means you can't run the board, my friend. And he came in over the weekend and like knocked it right out. So here we are, and I think we've eliminated our echo, and we got sound again, and we're going great. So really good times. Good times. All right, so we're just gonna keep layering on this purple. Dallas is our concept master, for those of you guys talking with him in the chat. He's gotten to retire from professional miniature painting, as he likes to say all the time. And now he just draws poses. And then, of course, does a ton of work with the sculptors and with the engineers, making sure that these Marvel characters and these miniatures come out to be just friggin' amazing. Like, man, I don't know out there if anybody, I'm sure a lot of you guys have like put together Star-Lord and painted him, but what a phenomenal looking miniature. I just worked on mine a few weeks ago after I got him, and I'd kind of forgotten like just how good he was. The way the coat lines are and just all of his details and stuff, just such a fun miniature to work with so much great detail. So So yeah, for those wondering who missed the announcement, the Ultimate Encounter will be available tomorrow to download from the website. I don't have a time for you guys. We're operating on kind of like a little bit of a weird schedule. But watch the social medias, Facebook, Twitter, all that good stuff, Instagram. And we're going to be, I'm sure, announcing it to the world very loudly and very excitedly that it's out there. And you guys will be able to play it and give it a shot and have some fun and vent some, energy and aggravation for those who have been trapped inside for too long. But hopefully you're getting outside, taking walks. We've had some really nice weather, thankfully. So like my kids have been able to go on the trampoline a lot. Like the trampoline's the new favorite toy, which has been great. All right, I think we're just gonna call this pretty good and let that base coat dry. Take a look at my green. Do a little more merm green on the thing. Just on that foot. There. All right. So I think I'm pretty much ready to start layering. So my first layer on the green is going to be Goblin Flesh, which is another Fantasy Games color. They have this pretty sweet orc skin Goblin Flesh line thing going on, which hopefully is going to make this kind of fun and easy. All right, so we're just going to start layering on green. Now most of my shade layer is going to disappear as I do this, which is fine. So it's kind of just acting as a really great undercoat, because you'll see that like as I paint this top, this brighter green, it's not completely opaque. Like no paint is truly opaque for the most part. They have some level of translucency, so you can see the colors that are underneath. And this is why painting over a black undercoat or a gray undercoat or a white undercoat can make such a huge difference, because that color is going to kind of show through for several layers. So if you want kind of a darker, more menacing, duller color, you can do it over black, and black is kind of the preferred because it also hides places that you miss and like crevices and stuff. But if you want really bright and vibrant colors and you don't want to have to do a lot of layers to get there, using a lighter undercoat will obviously allow those colors to pop more. And so if I wanted a really, really bright green Hulk over that gray undercoat that I did, I could have just started with my shade being this Goblin Flesh. But I wanted something a little less electric green this time around. And so you see I'm just like building up layers of this color, doing my best to like leave the dark black like in between the pecs. And that's really it. And then what I'll do is I'll come back through and I'll just do another layer again. And probably for the interest of time, I won't try to do this whole Hulk. We'll just work on a certain section. Maybe we'll just work on the torso. So we can kind of go through like the layering process and stuff. And one of the things that you can do with layering, if you get a little cheeky with it, is that when you thin out your paints, you'll notice that they kind of stretch a little bit. So by keeping your paint loose with a little bit of water, you can actually kind of fake out some blending. And you can pull the paint so that it stretches over those dark areas, and then it obviously won't it won't have the same opacity and it won't have the same kind of vibrancy. We're just going to do this, I'm going to do this. And again, like my goal here, as with everything that I paint, is not to make something that's going to go into the worthy competition and win me a coin or even a Mjolnir or an Odin statue. Like, my goal is to make something that I'm happy with, that looks really fun, and that I can just throw on the table and play with. So, to that end, I want something that can be done kind of quick and kind of easy, but that still looks good. And this is a great way to kind of do that. All right, let's go ahead and do his face a little bit. So you can kind of see, like, I thinned out my paint a little bit more, and as I pull it across the face and stretch out the paint, those dark areas where he's really like growled up kind of stay dark, but I still have my brighter color across. So I get kind of like this natural kind of like fake, a little bit like an overbrush, and a little bit like a blend, but it works out really nice. And I'm just trying to make sure that I stay away from these eyes because I want the eye sockets to be really dark. And then I want to try to make sure that I'm a light touch over kind of that furrow on his brow. And then I want to avoid a little bit of the area under his lip because that's where it's going to be dark too. And then I think this is the frenulum. Somebody can correct me if I'm using the wrong term. You want that to be kind of dark too. All right, I'm just going to go back to this pec because it doesn't want to get quite as bright as I want it to be. Stretch that out. And this is kind of the other trick too when you're painting miniatures for the tabletop. Remember that no one's going to look at him from this angle, right? Some people will pick them up and they'll be like, oh, look at that. But you never look at a miniature from this way. You always look at it from this way. So like the important areas that people are going to first see are the face, because humans naturally look at a face. So take a little bit of extra time to make sure that the face looks nice, right? That's where you want to put your most highlights and you want to like take your time on. And then from there, it's kind of like this area. So the chest and the shoulders, people are going to look at because they're going to focus on the face and then they're going to widen out, right? So the thing that people will pay very little attention to is like the legs. So kind of like the lower half below. So like I want the pants to kind of be good, but if I don't spend a whole lot of time highlighting the legs, no one's really going to notice that because one, they're not going to be looking at it from this angle. So they're not going to see like this patch here. I'm not even going to fix that. I don't care. Because no one's ever going to see it. Because if I turn the miniature to where you kind of look at it naturally, you can't see that spot. So don't worry about it, right? Just don't freak out about like getting these things good. Like I might just kind of run a really quick highlight over the toes, just to like brighten them up, and then I'll do the leg. But I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time like making sure that area looks amazing, because ultimately it's not going to be an area that people are going to spend a lot of time looking at or even noticing. And so learning those tricks, like where the eye goes, is something that if you ever get a chance to see Dallas at a convention, he does this really well. And this is obviously like kind of learned over a lot of years of painting and stuff. But look at his legs. Look at kind of like how his like torso below, right? Below the torso, you'll notice that there's very little highlighting. There's almost, no real concern. He'll make mistakes down here, like this little dot here, and he won't fix it because you're not going to look at it that way. It's not something that, 90% of the time anyone's going to notice. So why kill yourself to do it? There's always the argument of if somebody has like a shield or something, do you attach the shield afterwards so that you can paint all of the cool stuff that's beneath the shield? The true answer to that is why? Why do that? You can if you want. It can be fun to just kind of like take extra time and paint a miniature that way. But if you can't see behind the shield, you can't see behind the shield. So again, just put the shield on and paint around it, because no one's really going to be like, oh, did he get the whatever behind the shield? Did he make sure that looks great? It's just, that's not how you're going to see the miniature. That's not how anyone else is going to see the miniature. And trust me, even if you're like, well, I'll know, you'll forget. You'll forget, because if you do a good enough job and you make the thing look cool from the way that you normally see it, you're just going to start to think of it that way. You're going to be like, oh my gosh, it just looks great. I'm so happy with the way this guy looks. You're not even going to think about how all of a sudden there is nothing behind the shield or anything like that. So notice that I've been just layering the same color. So I'm still using that greenskin flesh, and I'm just doing it over and over. And what this is doing is, like we talked about, paint is not completely opaque, it's translucent. So it shows the colors underneath. And so what I'm doing is I'm just progressively like limiting my brush strokes to add more layers and make the color stronger and more opaque where I want it, right? And then I'm letting that dark area, like in between the muscles and stuff, like really exist. But the more that I go back and I layer the same color on, the brighter, the more vibrant, the more highlight I'm gonna get from that color. And so you can kind of use the same color a lot using this technique, and you can really start to like pop your highlights. So because every time you go back over it, if you just kind of restrict how much you're putting on over and over, you're gonna get kind of that pop of highlight. And again, if you're keeping your paint loose, which means that you're adding a little bit of water to it, like you always should, one of the really cool things is, and I've always thought this was really crazy, but it's something that I really started to love when I used to do layering a lot, is you'll add it on and you'll be like, oh my gosh, it's so bright, it's so overpowering. And then as it dries, it loses a bit of that vibrancy because the water has a shine to it. And so as the water and the liquid in the paint evaporates, it kind of takes away that shine. And then all of a sudden you're left with something that's a lot more reasonable and a lot less strong. So it's a really forgiving kind of method to use. So I'm pretty happy with that. Like I'm feeling pretty good about this color. So now I'm going to move up to my next color, which is going to be, let me find a good one here. Woo, Goblin Flesh is real bright. Slimer Green looks pretty good. Let's try Slimer Green. Let's just see what that looks like. Oh, that might be a little too green to start. How about Roddy Green? Looks really bright too, though. Oh, that one's better. We'll use a Roddy Green. That'll work. Okay, so now I'm using a Roddy Green from the Scale Color line, so Scale Color 75, not the Fantasy and Game line. I'm gonna add a little bit of water to it to loosen it up. And I'm gonna come back in and I'm just gonna do the same process again. So I'm gonna start and I'm gonna pick like where I want my highlights to be. And I'm just gonna start pulling the paint. I'm gonna start pulling the paint. And at this point, you could start two brush blending if you wanted to, or you grab another brush and you kind of pull the paint even more. So you can kind of like stretch the paint out and it kind of makes these natural blends. And this is a technique obviously that Dallas used throughout his entire professional painting career. But again, you can simply use the same technique we were using and just go layer by layer and build it up. So notice like I'm doing even less now. So I'm doing even less in terms of like where I'm putting the paint, right? I'm mostly focusing on the bottom of the peck. I'm pulling it up a little bit to the side. But I want to leave this area really dark. I want to leave this area with that mid-tone, and then I want this area to kind of start getting brighter. And so I'll just kind of fake in how I want the colors to look. And if I go too far, I can grab my second brush and I can pull the color and erase it if I don't like it. And the other really cool thing about this is that if you get done and you really blew out the highlights, so like you just got you look at it and you're like, oh, I went way too bright in one area, you can do a glaze of like a green ink or a green wash, and what it'll do is it'll tonally like shift down all your colors, and it'll kind of like meld them together. So it's a bit like applying a cellophane film over a picture. And so it kind of like, it tones everything to a certain extent. So you can really start to play with going a little too high in your highlights and then toning them back down if you want something a little darker. Like, for example, this green paint that I'm using is a little brighter than probably what I would have preferred for this Hulk, because I was trying not to go super green with him. But that's okay. I'm going to keep working with it. And if I want to, afterwards, I can come back in with kind of a darker green wash or an ink, and I can glaze them back down, and I'll get these nice little poppy highlights. And so like on these abs here, I'm just trying to think like, where's the light going to hit? Where should that brightness be? And then I'm just hitting the top of the abs. And cheating because I kind of want to pull this color down. So I'm just using that to erase because I don't want to switch my brush, but my brush is a little big for this. For me, I would probably be using the smaller brush. Maybe I'll switch to that now, because there's no real reason for me to stick with the big brush. So obviously, I am licking the brush, just for those wondering. Not with the paint on it though, but let me erase that a little bit. But like, to get a good point on your brush, Human Saliva does a really great job of conditioning brushes. So I always just kind of naturally lick my brush to pull the point back into place after I rinse it out, because those bristles will sometimes spray, or splay, excuse me, not spray. That'd be weird. They will spray, but that takes something different. So again, I'm just going to come in here. I'm using my smaller brush. I have a little bit more control because I'm just trying to do like fine lines. And I'm just going to build these layers up. And you can see again how I'm trying to keep the dark right here. So this is my base color. Here's my mid color that I did and built up down here. And now I'm adding that higher green, that poppier green right here. And I'm just going to start to restrict myself more and more as I kind of go in. And you can see how I'm getting like these natural highlights, and this is just the layering process. So it's like I might want a little bit of a high spot here because that part would be towards the light, and then I'm just going to trail it off. And I want to do a little bit more of a high spot here, and I'll come in and go around. And then for the pecs, you know, it just depends how high I want these to go. If I go to the face, which we talked about being like really important, so I'm going to hit that brow really hard because I want that brow to really stand out. We want to make him look like really angry. I'm going to get in here and carefully kind of, he's got these really good furrow lines, so I'm going to just kind of like accentuate those by layering at the top. And this is all kind of like learning how to trick the eye a little bit with stuff. So I'm going to hit the nose really bright. I'm going to get down here and hit the chin at the bottom, because again, I want to keep that darkness on the lip. I'm going to come over here and like his cheekbone. So this is, I think Dallas has mentioned this before, but if you want to get really good at painting faces, learn how to do makeup. So watch a lot of like cosmology or cosmetics like videos and stuff, because that's all you're doing with the paint is you're literally just applying makeup. So if you learn kind of how to be really good at applying, you know, if you don't want to learn how to do like supermodel cosmetics, you can learn by watching my favorite things, which are monster makeup tutorials, because it's the same thing. You're learning where and how to define the face. So like I want to keep this cheekbone high, and because he's kind of growling and I want him to have this angry face, I don't want paint to necessarily be hot right here where the cheek sinks in, but I want it like up here. And again, I want to make sure that that eye socket remains dark, right? So you can see how I'm kind of playing with these different things, and I'm adding accentuation and levels that may not be there necessarily in the sculpts or that the eye could see because they're so small. So remember, this thing's really small, right? When we sculpt miniatures, part of the art of sculpting a good miniature is over-exaggerating certain things because the eye can only see so much at scale. So for example, like hands are typically a lot bigger than they would be if they were at actual scale. Facial features get really exaggerated so that you can see what's going on a lot better because again, the face is so important. And I'm gonna leave this side really dark because he's got his face turned down and I'm kind of imagining the light hitting this way. So I'm not gonna do that, I'm gonna leave that side dark. It also makes it easier and quicker for me to paint and it'll turn out really nice. I'm gonna hit this temple just a little bit and I don't like what happened there. So I'm gonna use my magic eraser and I'm just gonna kind of like pull out the paint. There we go. Sweet. Okay. So I do have some choices here. Like a little bit on the chest. One of the cool things that I really like about the layering technique, and you can do this no matter what technique you're using, but a lot of times you'll see those like really crazy like pec striations that people do, where they get in there and they kind of start going crazy like that. And it makes it look like the muscle's really straining and it adds extra definition that might not be there. So you can do that with layering. You just have to be really careful with, or really consistent with where you're putting your lines. I am not going to do that though. I just want a very flat kind of comic booky color pop. Because I'm not trying to make a more realistic Hulk. I'm just trying to go for a fun, colorful Hulk. So we're going to come in and we're going to do this. Pull these over here. I'm going to pull this down here. And you can see how I'm just like, by limiting where I'm putting the paint, I'm building it up in layers. You're going to get sick of me saying that. See, now I have like this nice, from this angle, I have this nice like dark patch here. It's really bright up here. I'm brighter on the sides. I have the dark definition down here. And I'm just going, and I don't have to be super clean about it. I don't have to worry about it too much. And if I ever feel like, oh, I went too far, I can go back and I can kind of try to like cheat the layer in. But this is one where you kind of just want to be slow and kind of like very careful, like, because it'd be easy to come back in. Let's say I was like, oh, I don't like quite how bright that pec went. So I can grab some of my merm green, which I started with, and I can kind of thin it out a little bit with some water, and I could come back in here and I could like pull it back in and spread it out and be like, okay, well, there we go. We'll just get a little bit of darker tinge in there. So you can go back and kind of like affect it. Maybe I feel like I went a little bit too much over here. And then remember, because of how the paint is kind of translucent, it's going to show what's underneath it. So you're going to be able to kind of like mess with it that way. Or you can just, again, use a glaze at the end and be good to go. I can see that all of my comrades who are working from home diligently are all in the chat right now, which is great. Hey guys, how are you? What's going on? What time is it? All right, here we go. So, ooh, do I want to use that? I don't think I do. I thought I did, but now I don't. On Flesh. What about this one? What does this look like? Now I'm just trying to find my, whoa, that's really blue. We used a Roddy green. Yeah, maybe we go with Goblin Flesh. Goblin Flesh seems really bright. Goblin Flesh isn't even open. Oh my gosh. Poke it. Ooh. Well, I said I wasn't going to go electric, but apparently I'm going electric. That's okay. Sometimes you just find what you love. All right. So let's just kind of bring to conclusion our green spot here. And then maybe we'll do a little bit on the pants, and by that time it'll probably be time to say goodbye. So I'm just going to come in with my really bright green, which is, what did I say? Goblin Flesh from the Scale 75 Fantasy line. And I'm just going to come in and I'm going to try to hit these layers up. And I'm just going to give it a little bit of pop. I'm going to be kind of careful where I'm going with this color, because I want this to be right there. So I'm using a little bit of water to make them more translucent. What I'm doing is, Dallas usually uses the term loosening the paint. So whenever paint comes out of the pot, you always want to add a little bit of water to it. All paint is going to be translucent for the most part. There are probably some out there, like if they're meant to be a primer layer or really solid base coat paint specific, they may be less, excuse me, they may be less translucent or more opaque, but even the most opaque paint is typically not like perfectly solid. So you're always gonna have a little bit of translucency. Obviously, like when making a wash, the idea there is to make the paint more translucent, right? So the way that we normally paint on the stream with the zenith highlight and then doing a lot of washes, our goal is to really play with the idea that the paint has a lot of translucency to it, which allows it to show that underlayer, which then adds to the natural shading and highlighting, because we have white and we have black. But for these paints, like all I'm doing, I said I was going to keep that dark, and then I totally didn't. That was foolish. All right, magic eraser time. Perfect. But for this paint, specifically the one that I'm using right now, the Goblin Flesh, I did add a little more water than I normally would, because I want to make sure that this stuff is really kind of like a subtle build, rather than being more opaque like the other ones. Because if I blow out this, I'm going to lose kind of like that spot highlight. But for the most part, as long as you add a little bit of water to loosen the paint, you're going to find that you're going to have the right translucency to do layering anyway. And again, it's mostly about the best way to do layering is to always do it in a couple of coats and build that color slowly. And by building the color slowly, you're going to have a lot more control over how high the highlight gets. Like I can keep going on his eyebrows until I'm like really happy with them. Maybe I make them really strong. I get in here and I can add a little bit of like brow furrowing dots. I can come over here and I can make this cheek really poppy, but I want to stay out of the eye. So I'm gonna go back to my magic eraser. But yeah, layering, it gives you a lot of control. It can take a long time depending on the effect that you're going for. But because like you have control over how many layers you do each time, you can really take your time and just slowly get to the color that you want. And so if you want to get really fancy with it, it's a great way to kind of build highlights and stuff as an option. But even if you don't want to get fancy, it's still a really great kind of quick way to get really nice looking results, because at its core, you're just basically drawing or painting kind of lines, and you're just painting thinner and thinner lines. So again, if we look over at kind of the view that I've done forever, we have our dark color here, we have our mid color here, we have our built up highlight color, and then we have our spot highlight, this Goblin Flesh right here. And it's literally just layers of lines that have gotten thinner and thinner on top of each other. And that's all it takes. And you can get some really nice results. And like I said, at the end of it, what you can do, and maybe we'll show this if I can find a good color for it, is you can tie everything together if you want to with a simple glaze of color. For this instance, it would be green. And that will even make that transition of those layers even smoother, because what it'll do is it'll kind of act as the transition between all the different layers as you go. So I'm just going to continue to kind of like build up some spot highlights on his on his abs because we want those things to really pop. He does a lot of work. So it's only fair that, you know, we give him a good shot. I'm going to come over here to his oblique, give that kind of a nice little pop. And I'll just erase it a little bit. Here. Give that a little pop. A little pop. A little pop. A little pop. Come in here, really get this bad boy going. Cheat a little bit and do a little bit of 2 brush blending on this because I went a little too far. All right. So come through, adjust that out, get down here, come in, come over. Kind of pull that out a little bit. So now I'm just going to use another wet brush. And I'm going to do a little bit of blending because I just want these colors to pull. Because that peck is so big. I want a little bit more of that natural like gradation. Come in here. Come in here. Get the top of that peck really nice. And you can kind of see how the paint wants to pull, so it's getting like really opaque at the top where my brush is starting, and then it's kind of like pulling out as it goes down. I think my paint is about spent here, so I might have to reload. But again, we're kind of, it's just building those layers of colors. Ooh. Erase that line. Come back over here. All right, I need a little bit more of this color. Yes, Jaina. Loosen that up a little bit. Going. All right, here we go. So I'm just going to come back in. And hit this. Do that. I'm just going to pull that paint around. I'm going to come back over here. Paint around. Push it that way. So now what I did is I basically thinned out that green quite a bit. And I'm kind of using it a little bit like a wash, but I'm just pushing it. I'm pushing it where I want it to go, so that it builds up where I'm going to be happy with it, and not where I don't want it. And personally, I'm not super happy with how strong this green line is here, so I'm going to go and do a quick fix. So I'm going to grab some Greenskin Flesh, which I think was our mid color. Yeah. So I'm going to grab a little Greenskin Flesh, and I'm just going to go back in and I'm going to clean up that line a little bit. So it's a little too big for me. So I'm just going to come in and I'm going to take the Greenskin Flesh and I'm going to thin out that line like that. There. I'm going to come back in with a little bit of that green. And I'm just going to reclaim a little bit of that. I'm going to get that more in the middle. So that's where our light would be. There. There we go. That's the ticket. And then I'm going to go back to my Merm green really quick. I'm going to come in and I'm going to reclaim some of this dark shadow here. There. Whoop. Just pull that out. Here we go. So that is really quick layering on our Hulk, and it looks like we've hit our hour, so I think we'll leave it at that. Maybe we'll cheat. We'll just do it really quick. Why not? Let's see if we can find it. I'll show you the wash really quick because I think we're dry enough to do it. Ooh, we need test lime. I don't think we want lime though. We want, is there a green? There's got to be a green ink. Maybe, maybe not. I find it really hard to believe there's no green ink. Black forest green. Well, we could turn that into an ink, I guess. All right, we'll make our own wash because I can't find a green ink that I like. There's only a bright one. So we'll do this. Josh does not have any, I mean, that's not true, Josh. You could just turn me off. You're controlling the board still. So, all right. So the last thing that I have to talk about, I guess, before we wrap up is one of the things we've been working on is a fun little monthly challenge event. So I believe that this will be launching in the next couple of days. It might be tomorrow, but it might be early next week. But we, of course, like we want to obviously like have a lot of fun. We've really loved seeing all of the pictures that you guys have taken. So I just made a really thin glaze of green, and now I'm just going to wash it over everything. And you see how that kind of just like, it smooths out pretty much everything going on here. So it makes every transition kind of nice and really even. It's just a really great way to kind of like tie in all your layers together. And what you can do is, like we talked about earlier, if you blow out everything or like really crazy, like you just go too far, you can do a lot of really thin layers of glaze and it will pull everything back. And this is actually a really great way to paint red, is that you take red all the way to like a salmon pink, and then you grab a red glaze and you do like 5 to 10 to 15, depending on what kind of level of red you want, layers of glaze, and it makes a really great vibrant red. But yeah, so you can see how like my highlights are now a little more metered and everything's kind of smoothed together, and it's just a really quick and easy way. And I could keep doing this over and over until I wanted to go, right? But that kind of gives you an idea of how you can pull all your layers together in a really quick kind of final step. And the big thing is to make sure that you let your glaze dry. So a glaze is a really, really thin paint, really, really thin. So it's going to take a long time unless you have a hairdryer. So hairdryers are great. Blast it with the hairdryer, let the layer dry, put another layer on. But you just keep going with the glazes to tie everything together at the end. I'm pretty happy with this one layer because, again, I'm just looking for like a nice little poppy green. So I would do this over the whole miniature, obviously, and get the Hulk all going. But you can see like where we started versus where we went, and it was all just layers of paint. So we just built up layers over and over again. But yeah, so again, in the next couple of days, we're going to be introducing a monthly painting challenge. It's going to be a fun way for us to get together as a community, as a studio, hang out and paint something thematic over the course of the month, or to show off something that we have painted that meets the theme. And then you guys get the chance to submit them to us. The AMG staff is going to take a look at all the stuff. We're going to pick some of our favorites, and we're going to feature those on our social media and stuff. So it's just a really fun way to kind of explore and enjoy the hobby together. Maybe to try some new techniques or some new thought approaches to how you want to do stuff. But yeah, overall, I'm really excited for this. I've loved seeing what you guys have done out there. I know we talk about it in the studio all the time. We share pictures that we find on social media and everything. So it's going to be just kind of a fun way to kind of organize that and to let everybody kind of show off what they're working on in a fun way. And then for us to kind of like highlight some of the ones that we think, you know, wow, what a great way to do the theme. What a great use of technique here. All of that stuff. Or just, you know, I just really love what happened. And so we're going to get to highlight some folks around the community every month, and we're just going to have a lot of fun painting, and it's going to kind of like drive us forward and stuff like that. So what a better time to start than the upcoming month, where people may have some more time on their hands because we're all being home, we're being safe, flattening the curve, all that stuff. So for all of us here at AMG, which is literally just me right now, but for everyone at home, working hard on the next stuff for Marvel Crisis Protocol, as well as everything we want to give you guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for rolling with us as we figured things out, as we kind of step forward in this new solo streaming capability. Watch the social medias, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for information on the Ultimate Encounter Incredible Hulk that will be coming out tomorrow. Watch for more information on our monthly painting challenges, which we'll be rolling out in the next few days, as well as watch for more information as we kind of roll up our streams. The more we figure this out, we want to make sure that we're being with you guys, that we're connecting, and that we're just maintaining relationship, community, all that good stuff, all the things that are super important, while we're also being responsible in social distancing to make sure that we can kick this latest pandemic in the butt and get back to playing in the game stores and playing with each other as fast as possible. So again, thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate you hanging out with me, watching me kind of explain and paint my Hulk. I hope you guys did some painting as well. If you have any questions or anything you want to see on the other streams as we're coming up, techniques, things like that, please hit us up over social media. Again, we're just going to kind of be rolling forward. We're going to be trying to do more of these to connect, keep everything going. So have fun, be safe. Thank you so much. We'll see you on the next one. And watch all the social medias and our website for all the great information coming out and everything that we can do to stay connected. Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate it, and we will talk to you soon. Goodbye. Now I just get to sit here because I have no idea, how long I'm going to be here, how long I just get to chat. I'm just going to look at my Hulk and be like, oh, look at the Hulk. He's so pretty. Josh will never tell me that I'm actually off the air, so I'll probably just leave and it'll be fine.